As much as we love the movie, it ends with a fight between Paul and Jameis, who he'd seen in his prophetic dreams. This shows that Frank Herbert's original novel Dune is only half told in Denis Villeneuve's Dune, leaving a lot of story for a possible sequel. So in today's video, let's talk about what happens in the rest of the book and how the story continues. First off, Paul becomes Muad'Dib. In the book, he fights Jameis in the Fremen stronghold, Sietch Tabr, where Stilgar calls him Usul, which means base of a pillar. He also gives himself the name Muad'Dib. The desert of Arrakis and the Fremen themselves eat more of the spice mix directly, which only makes Paul Atreides' ability to see the future stronger. Still, he isn't exactly happy with all of his skills. He ends up being sure that he has to drink the water of life, after which his powers become fully formed. This puts him on the path to fulfilling his destiny. Up next, Jessica becomes a Reverend Mother. Aaliyah is born. When Lady Jessica gets to the Sietch, she also finds herself in an interesting place, teaching the Fremen how to fight in the weirding way. But Stilgar is still worried about her place in the Sietch and tries to convince her that she'd become the Reverend Mother, and for that, she'd have to drink the water of life. What's interesting is that she has no idea that she's carrying Duke Leto's unborn daughter, so when she drinks it, she's given the wisdom of a Reverend Mother. In fact, it also gives her daughter Aaliyah the same wisdom, so when she's born, she's wise beyond her years. Paul's role as the Messiah of the Fremen is strengthened by Jessica's role as a Reverend Mother. This sets the stage for what will happen in the future. Moving on, Paul and Chani have a son. Even though they don't get along well at first, they end up getting close during the 2 years that he and Jessica lived in Sietch Tabr, which makes Jessica sad. And eventually, their relationship leads to the birth of their son, whom they decide to name Leto II, after Paul's father. The Emperor sends his Sardaukar troops to attack the Sietch, which makes things worse between Paul, the Fremen, the Harkonnens, and the Emperor himself. Since the Emperor knows that Paul is Muad'Dib, he wants to stop the Fremen from getting stronger, and when he doesn't get to him, Leto II is killed in the process, and the Sardaukar forces take Aaliyah, not to mention how Gurney Halleck is alive. In the end, it's revealed that Josh Brolin's character lived through the Harkonnen attack on the Atreides, became a smuggler, and grew close to the people of Arrakis. During a Fremen attack on a spiced harvester, Paul and Jessica find out that he's still alive, but the reunion isn't all good. Gurney thinks that she is the person who turned on the Atreides, so he tries to kill her. Thankfully, Paul stops him in the end, but this is what makes him drink the water of life when he realizes that his ability to see the future didn't tell him that Gurney would come back. Coming up, let's talk about how Paul rallies the Fremen against the Harkonnens. He starts helping the Fremen stop the mining of spice on Arrakis so he can get back at the people who killed his family. The goal is to do two things: damage the Harkonnens' infrastructure and their most valuable export, and get the Fremen to see him as a leader. This kind of leadership is what makes them think he's their Messiah, which starts an unstoppable galactic crusade that will lead to a lot of deaths. Let's talk about how he takes revenge against the Harkonnens and the Emperor. After the Harkonnens' spice harvesters were attacked, and there were more rumors about Muad'Dib, the Emperor himself went to Arrakis. At this point, Paul starts his last attack. He uses nuclear weapons to destroy the shield wall that protects Arrakeen, the capital city of Arrakis. He and a lot of Fremen then ride sandworms into the city. They're able to beat the forces of the Emperor and the Harkonnens and take back the planet. Not just this, but Aaliyah manages to get away from her captors and kill Baron Vladimir Harkonnen at the same time. During this, though, she learns that the Baron is her and Paul's grandfather and Lady Jessica's real father. And finally, he becomes Emperor of the known universe. After defeating the Harkonnens' forces and killing the Baron, he still has to deal with the Baron's nephew, Feyd-Rautha, and the Emperor himself. Feyd tries to trick him with a poison knife, but he wins and kills his opponent. Now that the Harkonnens are gone, and Paul is in charge of Arrakis, he has control of the most valuable thing in the universe, spice melange. The Emperor has no choice but to send all of his troops home so that he doesn't destroy it. He even gives up his throne and makes himself the leader of the known universe. Paul then marries Princess Arulin, the Emperor's oldest daughter, to keep himself safe. Dune 2 will probably end with him in charge and hinting at the coming coming crusade by his followers, which was set in motion by his actions in the book and the 2021 movie. Now, let's talk about all the things the 2021 movie changed from the book. First off, let's talk about how the crawler scene played out differently. Shortly after House Atreides gets to Arrakis, Duke Leto makes it clear that he wants to check out one of the spice mines himself. Paul, Gurney, and Kynes go with him. During the inspection, they find a manned sandcrawler that's in danger from a sandworm that's coming closer. When Leto lands the ship to help the crew of the crawler, he gets out to help, and the worm almost eats him. This does happen in the book, but it wasn't nearly as exciting. In the book, he never leaves the ship, and instead of helping the crew, he just watches from the air as the sandworm eats the crawler. Up next, Liet Kynes is gender swapped. This is a pretty important character in the book. He's an imperial ecologist who was the judge of the change to make sure that House Atreides and House Harkonnen shared power fairly, and he was also the father of Chani and the Fremen's secret leader. The movie didn't change the character's role in the Empire or his relationship with the Fremen, but it did change Kynes into a woman. Now, we do think that there's nothing wrong with switching the genders of some roles, but don't you think this is a pretty big change from the original? Moving on to how his death was changed. When Sardaukar soldiers try to kill Paul and his mother, Kynes helps them get away, but she dies soon after. Some of those soldiers follow her into the desert, and one of them stabs her in the back, but before they could kill her, he brought a sandworm to where they were, and it ate everyone. In the book, Kynes' death takes a long time because he's left in the desert without water or a still suit and has to survive on his own. In the end, he dies from being tired, thirsty, and going crazy. Coming up, there's no mention of Paul's Mentat training. Mentats are people with strong minds who, thanks to spice, are just living computers. The movie shows Thufir Hawat of House Atreides and Pytir de Vries of House Harkonnen as Mentats, but what they don't show us is that Paul was also trained as a Mentat. In the book, he gets secret training from them without even knowing it. People think that this training, along with the training he got from the Bene Gesserit, helped him become the Kwisatz Haderach, a legendary being who's the best of the best. Let's talk about the Sardaukar, who were supposed to be disguised as Harkonnen soldiers. The movie was great, and Jason Momoa did an amazing job, but his best scene was when his character, Duncan Idaho, fought off Sardaukar troops to give Paul and Lady Jessica time to escape. Because of this, he ends up dying. People are afraid of the Sardaukar because they're the Padishah Emperor's best soldiers and were sent to help destroy House Atreides. The armor they wear is very different, which is why in the book, the Emperor made sure they wore Harkonnen armor to hide Imperial involvement. In the movie, on the other hand, they wear their armor, which makes it easy for Duncan to recognize them. Following that, the traitor's subplot barely existed. Some adaptations of sci-fi stories have been better than the originals, and Dune could be said to be one of them. But no matter how good the movie is, it can still be criticized for leaving out a major part of the book. Dr. Yui is later shown to be the traitor in House Atreides, which the movie makes very clear. In the book, the Harkonnen suspect Lady Jessica, and even though Duke Leto knows they're lying, the Mentat Hawat believes them. He does end up talking to Jessica, and she makes him feel bad about it. Now for the final fight scene, which was supposed to happen later. At the end of the film, the Fremen save Paul and his mother from a sandworm. When Stilgar agrees to bring them to their settlement, a man named Jameis challenges him to a fight to the death. But although it does exist in the book, it doesn't happen right away. In fact, Stilgar just brings them to the Sietch Tabor, and the challenge is given later. And when the battle is over, the movie doesn't show a scene in which the other Fremen save the water from Jameis's body. And finally, Chani was supposed to offer Paul help. Since there's going to be a sequel, the relationship between them will be explored. She tells him that Jameis is a skilled warrior who'll kill him as quickly as he gets ready for the duel. She then gives him her crysknife so he can die with honor. But in the book, she acts very differently toward him. Instead of just sending him to his death, she tells him how to fight Jameis, which helps him win. On that note, it's a wrap for this video. What did you think about all these events that are to be continued in Dune? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.